In literature, the use of metaphor is important for sparking the reader's imagination or for adding a little color to the author's world. This is maybe even more important in poetry, where metaphorical language is used all the time. Gemstones and other precious materials are sometimes used to develop this figurative language, and today we're going to look at some classic examples. Let's start with a household name, Emily Dickinson. Born in 1830, Dickinson is one of the most important figures in American poetry. She's credited with writing over 1,000 poems, but the one we're interested in today is I Went to Heaven. In the first stanza, she writes, "I went to heaven. 'Twas a small town, lit with a ruby, lathed with down." Sounds kind of cozy. So here she's using the ruby to create a sense of the exotic otherworldliness of heaven. Gemstones and heaven have been associated with each other since, well, the Bible. In Revelation, heaven is described as having streets paved with gold, the walls adorned with gemstones of every kind, and the 12 gates, 12 pearls. With all these gemstones to choose from, why would Dickinson choose ruby? Well, God himself is also described in Revelations as having an appearance like jasper and ruby, depending on which version of the Bible you're reading. For generations, stories have been told of rubies that glow with an inner light. Though a different religion, Hindus regarded the ruby as the king of all gems. Ruby was also thought of as a stone of life, given its blood color, and as a stone of protection, both of which I think you'd find in abundance in heaven. I don't know if there's much ultraviolet light in heaven, but if there is, Dickinson's ruby would fluoresce under that light. Some rubies glow a cherry red under UV light, flux-created stones especially. Although UV lights give me more of a party vibe than Dickinson's version of heaven has. Hers is more like a cottage fireplace. Speaking of streets paved with gold, let's talk about that. Gold.
I love gold!
In his poem titled Gold, Thomas Hood describes some of the intangible properties of gold. It's hard to get a hold of, but it's easy to let it get away from you. It's spurned by the young, but hugged by the old. Price of many a crime untold, etc. But he also briefly mentions some of gold's physical properties as well. Bright and yellow, hard and cold, molten, graven, hammered, and rolled. Gold's brightness and gleaming yellow color are part of the reason for its popularity since, well, forever. And it's true, gold does feel cold to the touch, but why is that? Well, metals are great conductors of heat, meaning that metals very readily allow heat to pass through them. When you hold a gold ring in your hand, what you feel is the heat from your hand passing quickly and efficiently into the ring, the sensation of cold. This is also why hot metal can burn you so quickly too. Silver and copper are even more conductive than gold, and cheaper too, but gold rarely tarnishes and withstands conditions that are more corrosive. Hood also says gold is hard. I mean, it is a metal, but as far as metals go, gold is one of the softest. It's so soft, in fact, that you can dent it by biting it. That's why you see athletes bite their medals at the Olympics. Though solid gold medals haven't been given out since 1912, the tradition of biting continues. During the gold rush in California, biting gold to test its authenticity and purity was a common practice as well. But Hood died just before the rush began, so he wouldn't have known all that. Hood also writes that gold is hammered and graven. This also speaks to gold's softness. But gold is also extremely ductile and malleable. In fact, it's the most ductile element in the world. A single ounce of gold can be drawn into a wire over 50 miles long and only 5 microns or 5 millionths of a meter thick. As far as hammered, a gram of gold, something about the size of a grain of rice, can cover a square meter. That's pretty remarkable. If you ask me, I think gold would be valuable even if it weren't so pretty and shiny. Lastly, we're going to talk about a poem by Eugene Lee-Hamilton titled What a Sonnet Is. He describes it as the pure white diamond that Dante brought to Beatrice, and the ruby Shakespeare hewed from his heart's core. This is yet another of the countless examples of authors using gemstones to convey the exceptional beauty and loveliness of something. But one part of this poem in particular interests me. Hamilton writes that a sonnet is, quote, 14 of lone Calypso's tears that rolled into the sea for pearls to become. Pearls have some of the most interesting lore in the gemstone world. While most precious stones come from the ground, pearls are born of the sea. Imagine discovering a pearl hidden in a mollusk and not really knowing what it was, only that you were looking at something of unparalleled beauty. Where could this thing have come from? And who on earth stuffed it into this oyster? If you ask the ancient Japanese, they would have said something similar to Hamilton's verse, that they were created from the tears of mermaids, nymphs, and other mythic creatures. According to Tahitian myth, the god of peace and fertility, Oro, came to Earth on a rainbow with a magical oyster. Inside was a black pearl, which he gifted to Princess Bora Bora as an offering of love. Similar to the Haitian story, and maybe inspired by pearls' iridescence, Persian myth says pearls were created when a rainbow touched the earth following a great storm. Any imperfections in a pearl were caused by thunder and lightning during the storm. Ancient Chinese people believed pearls formed when dragons fought high among the clouds, and there's even a story of a boy swallowing a pearl and turning into a dragon himself. Trust me, that doesn't work. It seems like every ancient civilization agreed pearls must have come from something divine. Of course, nowadays we know that pearls and all other precious gems are simply the beautiful byproduct of certain geological conditions and organic processes. But knowing that doesn't make us appreciate them any less. In fact, it may make you admire them even more. If you were a poet, which gemstone would be your muse? Let me know down in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe. And of course, ring the bell so you don't miss out on our future videos. Thanks for watching.